All right. So let's start with Bhagavad Gita first. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are on chapter number 3. Oh, just 1 second. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Yeah. So we are on chapter number 3, which is entitled Karma Yoga. So we saw in the first 2 chapters how Krishna has actually concluded the Bhagavad Gita, but yet Arjuna is having some queries in terms of how to implement the principle of Bhagavad Gita in a day-to-day life. So many questions are asked by Arjuna on behalf of all of us, so that we can understand also how to apply this principle of Bhagavad Gita. So it starts off with how Arjuna is asking, "Oh Krishna, why do you want me to engage in this war? Right? This war is ghastly, and why do you want me to engage in this war? Because it is going to result in so many soldiers actually giving up their lives, simply because we have to rule a kingdom." So in this way, he asks, he says that you've already given me instructions, but tell me decisively now, what is it that I have to do? Because Krishna has already told in the previous chapter itself. I mean, get up and fight with determination. Right? In this way, already the clear instructions have been given to Arjuna, but yet Arjuna is not very convinced whether this war is required just because they have to rule some kingdom. So in this way, Arjuna continues to ask the questions. And then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, says, there are 2 kinds of people, he says. One are those who have a philosophical bent of mind, and who want to engage in mental speculation. Right? I will do this, I will do that, I will try to find out what is the best way for me, whether I should act or not act in certain circumstances. So like that, some people have a bent of mind wherein they want to analyze everything and decide whether they want to engage in the particular action or not. And the second type of people whom Krishna refers to as those people who engage in devotional service. That means those people who are bhaktas. That means they don't have any will other than following the instructions of the spiritual master or following the instructions of Krishna. They don't have any other desire. So in this way, Lord Krishna is saying there are 2 kinds of people. One type of people, they always want to mentally speculate and do things what they find it logical, and the others are inspired simply by devotional service. But then he goes on to say that those people who engage in mental speculation, right, and they think that we have to renounce things. We should not. We should. Even Arjuna had that idea, right? I will go to the forest and I will sit there in the forest and I will meditate. I don't want to fight for a kingdom like that. So Krishna goes on to say that how even one's own body one cannot maintain without performing an action. Right? We have to like even the animals, they have to run and capture their prey. Even in the animal species, in human species, we all have to work. Only then we can even maintain our body. But how do we perform this work? That only determines whether our action is going to take us to a better destination, or whether our actions are going to take us to a lower destination. Determines is determined by the consciousness in which we perform the particular action. Then it becomes karma yoga. When it becomes when we perform our activities in consciousness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it becomes karma yoga. And then Krishna tells Arjuna, you perform your duty. Perform the duty that you are supposed to do, work for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he talks about Jivo Jivasya Jivanam. Right? All of the living entities are dependent. Like the herbivorous animal is dependent on the grass. The carnivorous animals are dependent on other animals. In the human form of life also, we are dependent on plants. We are dependent on the cow products, right? Milk, ghee, and all of those things, right? So Krishna tells Arjuna that yajna or performance or sacrifice is most essential. When sacrifice is properly performed, then there will be no shortage, no scarcity of anything in any form of life, right? We saw in Nectar of Instruction also how the elephant eats maximum so many kilos of whether it's grass or whatever they eat, the vegetation, right? So many kilos is required, but yet the elephant does not have to work. The elephant does not get paid salary and arranges for its food, right? The elephant just walks across. In nature there's abundance for all of us to have, provided only the human beings have a shortage because there is greed. Otherwise, animals, what do? They just go, they eat whatever is required for their maintenance, and then they go ahead, right? So in the human form of life only there is scarcity. Why? Because people are subject to greed. People want more and more. They want to accumulate things, right? And that is why the Vedic scriptures are given how everything has to be regulated. When everything is regulated in the service of the Lord, then what happens? There's a peaceful environment for the people to actually live in this material world also. And in this way, one can live happily by performance of this yajna. And at the end of one's life, one can go back home, back to Godhead. So this is a prescribed formula that by simply doing karma yoga, action in Krishna consciousness, perform our work, but perform it for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this way, one can go back home, back to Godhead. One can be satisfied in this world, and one can go back home, back to Godhead. So what is the one thing that Krishna is stressing again and again? Work, but work for my pleasure, work for my satisfaction. And then Krishna gives the example of Janak Maharaj. Krishna gives his own example, right? There is no work prescribed for me, but yet I do my work because people follow great leaders. So we have to do our duties, but not out of ignorance. We have to do our duties knowing well that whatever work I am doing it for the pleasure of the Lord. And in turn, what is going to happen? I am going to get a higher destination, right? So finally, Krishna tells, give up lethargy and get up and fight, O Arjuna, like that. So let's continue from text number 31 of chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita. Let me share my screen, and then quickly we can have devotees who want to read. You can raise your hands, and then let's start. Text number 31 of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, let's go ahead. Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasoyanto muchyante tepi karmabhihi. Synonyms, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhicharanaravind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Manimala Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavatam.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Yes.
Ye, those, me, my, matam, injunctions, I,
Me.
idam.
Not me,
yes.
Mataji.
Me, my, matam, injunctions, idam, this, niyam, nityam, eternal, function, anushishtani, execute, regularly, manava, humankind, shraddhavana, with faith and devotion, anashata, without envy, muchante, become free, te, all of them, happy, even, karmavi, from the bondage of the law of fruitive action. Purport done by Srila Prabhupada. Translation. One who executes his duties according to my injunctions and who follows this teaching faithfully without envy becomes free from the bondage of fruitive actions. Purport done by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom and therefore is eternally true without exception. As the Vedas are eternal, so this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. One should have firm faith in this injunction. Without envy, the Lord. There are many philosophers who write comments on the Bhagavad Gita but have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage of fruitive action. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat, and hopelessness, you will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. Hari Bol Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mansi. Okay, very wonderful point, isn't it? We don't feel remorseful for any kind of failure, nor do we feel very elated at the time of success. So why? How do we practice this? We practice this because we are not performing any work for our sense gratification. What are we performing the work for? We are performing the work for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? Very clearly, Prabhupada is reiterating this in the purport. Right? Prabhupada is very clearly saying one is not mindful of this principle. Why? Because he works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness. Right? In this material world, we can never get 100% success in anything we do. Right? Sometimes it is a success, sometimes it's a failure, but the endeavor is always considered a success when we are working for the pleasure of the Lord. Ultimately, we need to be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness, and all of our activities give us the opportunity to promote ourselves to the stage of Krishna consciousness. Right? The consciousness with which we perform the activity determines the actual success, and not the actual material success or failure of the particular activity. That is in substance the gist of whatever Prabhupada has explained. Yeah. So in that context only, we will see the next few verses also. And one more point, what I missed, right? What is this important word that we saw in verse number 31? Anasuyave, right? What is that? What is that? Anasuyantaha, right? We saw this word. Anasuyantaha. What is anasuyave, right? Even in the other, right? Pravakshyam anasuyave, right? Why does Krishna give the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, not to anybody else? Anasuyave means one who is not envious, right? Anasuyave, nashuyanto, shraddhavanto, anasuyanto, right? That apostrophe is there, right? That apostrophe actually it's to be read as a, right? Anasuyanto, anasuyave means somebody who's not envious, right? It is said that somebody who's envious, it has envy. Who has envy has got envy. That means no vacancy in the spiritual world. Right? We have all other qualities like lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion. All of these can be dovetailed in the service of the Lord. Right? If you are very lusty, right, then we can dovetail our loving propensity towards Krishna. In that way, lust will get transformed into love. Right? Anger, we can dovetail our anger also. How do you dovetail our anger? We saw in Nectar of Instruction. Right? One verse itself talks about how Hanumanji dovetailed his anger, right, by destroying Lanka. Right? Similarly, we can also dovetail our anger against those people who don't approve of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or who are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or who blaspheme the devotees. Right? Like that, anger also can be dovetailed. Greed also can be dovetailed. I can be more and more greedy to hear about the pastimes of the Lord. Right? I can be greedy that way. Right? So in that way, greed also can be dovetailed. Lust, anger, greed, pride. Right? What is the pride of a devotee? The pride of a devotee is that I follow the instructions of the Guru Parampara very sincerely. That can be the pride of a devotee. Right? One should have real pride. Real pride is to be part of this Krishna consciousness movement. Right? That is real pride. What is false pride? False pride is I think I am the enjoyer. I think I am the controller. That is false pride. That is ahankar. Right? At no point in time are we going to give up our real ego. What is our real ego? Right? We can be proud that we are servants of the right person. Right? We want to be servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? We can take pride in being servants of that Supreme Lord. We can take pride being followers of that Supreme Lord who is the best, who is our best friend. Right? That is real pride. So pride also can be dovetailed in the service of the Lord. But only there is one quality which is envy, right? Which cannot be dovetailed. How can we, if you are envious of the Lord, that is why we are in the material world. If you are envious of devotees, then we will not be able to get along with the devotees, right? But if we have the greed also, right? Then what is it? Then we can associate with the devotee to become greedy for hearing about Krishna, right? But envy cannot be dovetailed. That is why here one of the most important quality that is mentioned here is anasuyantaha, without envy. When one is free of envy, then what happens? One becomes free from the bondage of fruitive actions. Only then one can promote oneself to the state of Krishna consciousness. As long as one is envious of any other person, one cannot make progress, right? One can be ambitious, right? One can be ambitious, but one should do one's work better to try to attain higher positions. But when one tries to pull down another person and that way climb, then that is never approved by the Lord, because the Lord does not approve of this kind of behavior wherein we try to pull down another person because we are envious of that person. Such a person can never be successful. But a person can be ambitious, right? I chanted 64 rounds. I know that somebody else chanted 120 rounds, so I may want to chant 120 rounds, right? But I should not think that that person should chant less. Now, that is the distinction. That is the difference between envy and being ambitious, right? That person is chanting 120. I should chant 124 rounds. That is very good. That is transcendental competition, right? You tell and that person will say, okay, you chanted 124. I am chanting 130 rounds tomorrow. Wonderful transcendental competition. But we should not think that, oh, that person should not chant 120. That person should chant only 60 rounds because I am able to chant only 64 rounds. That person also should chant only 64. That ill mentality, that is what we need to give up. Right? We can be ambitious in Krishna consciousness. We can encourage each other in this way, and each of us want to practice more and more and more for the pleasure of the Lord. Ambitiousness, very nice, but envy is very bad, right? We need to give it up. Even if we don't chant, we should think that let the other person chant in that person's association. If we stay in that person's association, inspired by that person, we can chant more, right? So in that way, envy has to be completely given up. There is no, and we can remember this, envy. There is no vacancy for an envious person in the spiritual world, right? Everybody else can be tolerated, but not an envious person like that. All right, let's move forward. Text number 33, 32. No, 30, 33. Okay, Sindhu Mataji, go ahead. Sadarsham cheshtate swasya prakrite jnanaman.
Mataji, I think 32 we have to read.
No, 32 we just read, na? Anasuyantaha.
31 we read, Anasuya.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Correct. Yes, Mataji, go ahead. 32, verse number 32. Yes.
Yes, Hare Krishna. 2. Etve etad abhyashuyanto nanutishtanti tam sarvajnana vimudamstan vidinastan achetashah. Those who, however, etad this abhyashuyantaha out of envy, do not anutishtanti regularly perform me, my matam injunction, sarvajnana in all sorts of knowledge, vimudhan perfectly befooled, tan they are, vidhi know it well, nashtan all ruined, ache tashaha without Krishna consciousness. Translation and purport by Divine Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. But those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. Purport. The flaw of not being Krishna consciousness is clearly stated herein. As there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Head, so there is certainly punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self and of the Supreme Brahman, Paramatma, and the personality of God due to a vacant heart. Therefore, there is no hope of perfection of life for him.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. So very important point here, right? They say that it is easy to wake up a person who is sleeping, but a person who is pretending to sleep, it is very difficult to wake up that person, right? Similarly, when somebody is does not know and is being disobedient, then at least we can teach that person, right? Okay, you do it like this, do it like that. But somebody who's envious, what does he do? He because he knows everything, but simply he will feign ignorance and not do certain things, or do some things thinking that just feigning to others or acting to others that I should not be doing, I didn't know about it at all, right? But for a person who's envious like this, who's a pretentious person, for such a person, there is no hope of perfection of life, right? So that is why the same principle what Krishna mentioned in the previous verse, right? One who's envious will not be able to advance at all in spiritual life. So here the conclusion is drawn that if a person is envious, then there is no scope for perfection for such a person. Text number 33. Rohini Mataji, go ahead. Sadrisham cheshtate swasyaah prakritirjnanavanapi
प्रकृतिं यान्ति भूतानि निग्रह किं करिष्यति. Translation: Sadrisham accordingly, cheshtate tries, swasya by his own, prakrite modes of nature, jnanavan learned, api although, prakritim nature, yanti undergo, bhutani all living entities, nigraha repression, kim what, karishyati can do. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? Purport: unless one is situated in the transcendental platform of Krishna consciousness, he cannot get free from the influence of the modes of material nature, as it is confirmed by the Lord in the 7th chapter, 7.14. Therefore,
anyone
even for
remembers
the
what
most...
is 7.14? Anyone knows what is 7.14? Is it for reading or Sudha Mataji, you know? Who knows 7.14?
Devi
Hare Krishna
Eshamahi.
Mataji, Daivi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mameva Prapadyante Maya Mitam.
Yeah, who said it?
Sudha Mataji.
Sudha Mataji.
Yeah. So yes. So 7.14. What does it say? Daivi Hayeshu Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya. That is what is Krishna is mentioning here. Prabhupada is mentioning here. It is very, very difficult. Daivi Hayeshu Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya. Duratyaya means very difficult to overcome the three modes of material nature. That Mameva ye prapadyante. But someone who surrenders unto me, Maya Metam Tarantite. Very easy to cross over the three modes of material existence. Like that. Yes, Mataji. Go ahead.
Therefore, even for the most highly educated person on the mundane plane, it is impossible to get out of the entanglement of Maya simply by theoretical knowledge or by separating the soul from the body. There are many so-called spiritualists who outwardly pose as advanced in the science, but inwardly or privately are completely under particular modes of nature which they are unable to surpass. Academically, one may be very learned, but because of his long association with material nature, he is in bondage. Krishna consciousness helps one to get out of the material entanglement, even though he may be engaged in his prescribed duties in terms of material existence. Therefore, without being fully in Krishna consciousness, one should not give up his occupational duties. No one should suddenly give up his prescribed duties and become a so-called yogi or transcendentalist artificially. It is better to be situated in one's position and to try to attain Krishna consciousness under superior training. Thus, one may be freed from the clutches of Krishna's Maya. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to be situated in a position where we attain Krishna consciousness under superior training, right? Then we'll be freed from Krishna's Maya, right? Daivi Hayesha Gunamayi Mama Maya. That's why Prabhupada is translating it as Krishna's Maya. It is the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How is it that, marginal, we are all marginal energy of the Lord. Whereas Mahamaya, Mahamaya is the external energy of the Lord. And Yoga Maya is the internal energy of the Lord. So the Lord's energy is so powerful, while they cannot cover the Lord. While they cannot act on the Lord, they can very easily act, because the Lord is Vibhu and we are Anu, right? So, what is this energy of the Lord is also great, but is not greater than the Lord. So it cannot bring the Lord into illusion. But this energy of the Lord, Mahamaya, can easily put all of us into illusion, because it's the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes that is why we also see that even though we may be very determined, sometimes we get illusioned by Maya. And in some cases, we take some decisions which we regret later also. But how do we avoid doing this? That is why Like one devotee was giving a class, right, where every round of chanting that we do, right, we're going to say that I'm dedicating this round to you, O Krishna, right, help me chant this round nicely. Like that, when we surrender to the Lord, then what happens? The Lord will empower us to chant in a way that is pleasing to him. Otherwise, we may endeavor so much, right? We may chant during Brahma Muhurta, we may chant, we may, go to sleep early, we may wake up early, all that. It helps. Of course, it helps because our endeavor and Lord Krishna's mercy both are required. So, our endeavor section, it helps. But the more we surrender, the more mercy we will get. Right? Two fingers too short. Right? Our endeavor is always there. But when the Lord's mercy is there, to the extent, ye yatha mam prapadyante, tam satyeva bhajamaham. The more we surrender to the Lord at every step, the more the Lord will protect us to ensure that we are successful in our endeavor to please the Lord, like that. So there is said to be a transcendental competition between the Lord and the devotee, right? The Lord is so much dependent on the Lord. And why is he dependent on the Lord? Like, it's not that I have some, material desire and I'm dependent on the Lord, right? I am dependent on the Lord to even satisfy the Lord. That is the mode of a pure devotee. Pure devotee knows that even though I want to satisfy the Lord, I cannot satisfy the Lord without the Lord's mercy. So the Lord, so he prays to the Lord so intensely, give me the intelligence so that I can serve you nicely so that you can be pleased. And the Lord is so much more eager to give that kind of intelligence to the devotee so that the devotee can please him. And in this way, the more one devotee pleases, the Lord becomes more happy and satisfied. And then the Lord gives him more intelligence, and the devotee gets satisfied, because when the Lord is satisfied, the devotee is automatically satisfied. So there is transcendental competition between the Lord and the devotee, where the Lord provides mercy and the devotee shows so much of desire and endeavor to please the Supreme Lord. Right? That should be the consciousness of devotees, right? Even aspiring devotees, right? Even at this stage of sadhana bhakti, we can always want to please the Lord, and we can pray to the Lord to give us the intelligence, so we can please the Lord more and more, like that. Okay, let's move on. 34. Sudha Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
इन्द्रियस्येन्द्रियस्यार्थे रागद्वेषौ व्यवस्थितौ तयोर्न वशम् आगच्छेत्यौह्यस्य परिपन्थिनौ. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the...
Synonyms or whatever translation.
Okay, synonyms. Indriyasya, of the senses. Indriyasya arthe, in the sense objects. Raga, attachment. Dveshav, also detachment. Vyavastitau, put under regulations. Tayo, of them. Na, never. Vasham, control. Agachet, one should come. Tau, those. He, certainly. Asya, his. Paripantino, stumbling blocks. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. Purport: those who are in Krishna consciousness are naturally reluctant to engage in material sense gratification. But those who are not in such consciousness should follow the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures. Unrestricted sense enjoyment is the cause of material engagement, but one who follows the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures does not become entangled by the sense objects. For example, sex enjoyment is a necessity for the conditioned soul, and sex enjoyment is allowed under the license of marriage ties. According to scriptural injunctions, one is forbidden to engage in sex relationships with any women other than one's wife. All other women are to be considered as one's mother. But in spite of such injunctions, a man is still inclined to have sex relationships with other women. These propensities are to be curbed, otherwise, they will be stumbling blocks on the path of self realization. As long as the material body is there, the necessities of the material body are allowed, but under rules and regulations. And yet, we should not rely upon the control of such allowances. One has to follow those rules and regulations unattached to them, because practice of sense gratification under regulations may also lead one to go astray, as much as there is always the chance of an accident even on the royal roads. Although they may be very carefully maintained, no one can guarantee that there will be no danger even on the safest road. The sense enjoyment spirit has been current a very long time owing to material association. Therefore, in spite of regulated sense enjoyment, there is every chance of falling down. Therefore, any attachment for regulated sense enjoyment must also be avoided by all means. But attachment to Krishna consciousness or acting always in the loving service of Krishna detaches one from all kinds of sensory activities. Therefore, no one should try to be detached from Krishna consciousness at any stage of life. The whole purpose of detachment from all kinds of sense attachment is ultimately to become situated on the platform of Krishna consciousness. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. So, very, very important thing, right? The other day also we were discussing this, right? It is not necessary to develop a detachment to material things, right? If we develop attachment to Krishna, then automatically we will do only those things that will give pleasure to Krishna. So, automatically Param Drishtva Nivartate happens. That means all of these inferior things that we think will give us pleasure will automatically be given up, right? So I was just thinking, right, we have the regulative principles: no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex, right? So if you are just simply careful that I should not eat meat, then what happens? We are unregulated. Like whatever we find which does not have meat in it, then we want to eat it, right? Then what happens? We are regulated, no doubt, we are following the regulative principle, but we are not but we are so much attached to following that regulative principle that we are forgetting regulation in the regulative principle, because we are so attached, right, that if I follow this, then I can do everything else according to what I desire, because I'm attached to something, right? I just want to follow it to the extent it is required, but I'm not willing to give up that for a higher principle. Like for example, like now we know that we have to have only Krishna Prasadam, right? Even in Krishna Prasadam, right, we have the next step is not to be having attachment to any particular Krishna Prasadam, right? We need to have Krishna Prasadam for us to advance in spiritual life, right? So even Krishna Prasadam, one is we are regulated, right? We don't over consume Krishna Prasadam also, because that will also result in oversleep and we're not able to wake up in the morning. And even Krishna Prasadam, we have it say 2 hours before dinner today, right? I mean, sorry, what I'm saying, 2 hours before going to sleep today. That means I do these principles of Krishna consciousness also, but I do it in a way that will facilitate me to engage in devotional service. That is the ultimate principle, right? We follow the regulative principles, that is one. But if you are so much attached to simply following, that is what we also saw in Nectar of Instruction, Niyama Agraha. That means I'm so much attached to rules that I will follow the rules, but I don't know the higher principle behind that rule. Why am I following that rule? Right? To just follow rules and regulations without having a higher principle that I'm doing it for advancing in Krishna consciousness. That is the attachment that Prabhupada is mentioning here. One should be detached from anything that is not related to Krishna. Right? We need not be attached to the principle, but we follow that principle. But we are attached only to the fact that this is helping me advance in Krishna consciousness. That is why I'm doing it. So, at a particular point, when we find that something is not favorable for us, for advancing in Krishna consciousness, we should be able to give up that principle. Now, we should not be attached to that principle, because what has worked thus far may not work for going on, right? There's also a beautiful saying that the mindset that has created all of the problems, with the same mindset, we cannot solve the problems. We have to transcend that mindset. Only then we can solve future problems, right? So in this way, we should not even be attached to the principles that have actually helped us in Krishna consciousness thus far, because those principles may not help us advance further, right? Like in the initial stage, we cannot chant more than 4 rounds, right? So we know that we have to chant Hare Krishna. That is going to help us advance in Krishna consciousness. But when we progress beyond 8 rounds, we come to 16 rounds. Then we have to see what will help us advance even more. Proper quality rounds will help us advance, right? Earlier we used to simply do 16 rounds, some more the other. We move from 8 to 16. Right? Bus में जाते हुए chant करते हैं. We go in the train, we go in the bus. That also we somehow we are doing 16 rounds. But once we are steadfast in our 16 rounds, now we want to see how we can chant our 16 rounds properly. How we can chant 20 rounds, how we can chant 25 rounds. Right? So no longer we are simply attached to chanting 16 rounds some or the other. Now we want to chant 16 quality rounds. We want to chant 20 rounds. We want to chant 25 rounds on Ekadashi. We want to chant 32 rounds. We want to chant 128 rounds. The sky is the limit, right? How much we want to advance in Krishna consciousness. We need to not be attached to the principle, but we need to be attached to the fact that I want to become more and more dear to Krishna. I want to please Krishna more and more. We need to be attached only to that and not to any of the other details which may not at a particular point in time help us advance in Krishna consciousness. That is what it is. All right. So text number 35. Vrishamanu Kanya Mataji. With this we will stop and then we'll start nectar of instruction. Yes, Mataji, go ahead. Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha Paradharmat Swanustithat Swadharme Nidanam Shreyaha Paradharmo Bhayavaha. So looks like we are going slow, but it's fine. We are no urgency to complete the Bhagavad Gita. So we'll study the synonyms. We'll go slowly. All right. So if anyone has, want to finish want to finish fast, then we can discuss at the end of the session. How we can balance. But at least from my humble suggestion would be, let's go slow. I mean, it's not about going slow. Again, it's not a principle that we will go slow, right? We will discuss whatever comes to our mind, and then we'll study the synonyms. There's no hurry. That's what I mean. All right. Okay. Thanks for the thumbs up.
Dandavat Pranam Mataji.
Yeah, go ahead.
Shreyan, far better. Swadharma, one's prescribed duties. Vigunaha, even faulty. Paradharmat, then duties mentioned for others. Su anustita, perfectly done. Swadharma, in one's prescribed duties. Nidhanam, destruction. Shreyaha, better. Paradharma, duties prescribed for others. Bhayavaha, dangerous. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily. Mataji, scroll. Faultility. Then another duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties. For to follow another's path is dangerous. Purport by Sri Prabhupada. One should therefore discharge his prescribed duties in full Krishna consciousness rather than those prescribed for others. Materially prescribed duties are duties enjoined according to one's psychological conditions under the spell of the modes of material nature. Spiritual duties are as ordered by the spiritual master for the transcendental service of Krishna. But whether material or spiritual, one should stick to his prescribed duties. Duties on the spiritual platform and duties on the material platform may be different.
No. Sorry. You missed one line. One should stick to his prescribed duties even up to death.
One should stick to his prescribed duties even up to death rather than imitate another's prescribed duties. Duties on the spiritual platform and duties on the material platform may be different, but the principle of following the authorized direction is always good for the performer. When one is under the spell of modes of material nature, one should follow the prescribed rules for his particular situation and should not imitate others. For example, a Brahmana who is in the mode of goodness is involvement, whereas a Kshatriya who is in the mode of passion is allowed to be violent. As such, for imitate a Brahman who follows the principle of
Kshatriya, it is better.
As such, for the Kshatriya, it is better to be vanquished following the rules of violence than to imitate the Brahmana who follows the principle of non-violence. Everyone has to cleanse his heart by gradual process, not abruptly. However, when one transcends the modes of material nature and is fully situated in Krishna consciousness, he can perform anything and everything under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. In that complete stage of Krishna consciousness, the Kshatriya may act as a Brahmana or a Brahmana may act as a Kshatriya in the transcendental stage. The distinctions of the material world do not apply. For example, Vishwamitra was originally a Kshatriya, but later on he acted as a Brahman, whereas Parshuram was a Brahman, but later on acted as Kshatriya. being transcendently situated, they could so, but as long as one is on the material platform, he must perform his duties according to the modes of material nature. At the same time, he must have a full sense of Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna, Dandavat
Thank you so
Pranam.
much, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Dandavats. Yeah. So here the same thing, right? What Arjuna told, right? Arjuna said, I'd rather go to the forest and I will renounce everything and I will live my life by begging, right? And then why did Krishna say no? Right? Krishna told no because that is not the duty of a Kshatriya. Arjuna is a Kshatriya. So he will not be able to live by this begging process, right? Prabhupada actually explains in one lecture that suddenly he will feel very hungry and he will start hunting animals because that is the nature of a Kshatriya. He will not be able to tolerate hunger and still continue begging, right? Whereas the nature of a Brahmana is if at all they do madhukari, right? They have so much level of tolerance also, right? If they don't get food on a particular day, they will starve. That kind of tolerance is there for a person who is a Brahmana, whose qualities and nature are that of a Brahmana, not by birth, but those whose qualities are that of a Brahmana can actually tolerate the hunger, the thirst, etc. Whereas the Kshatriya cannot tolerate, right? A Kshatriya will ensure that he gets his adequate amount of food, etc., etc. So it was not proper for Arjuna to decide that I will go and renounce this war and I will go and sit in the forest and meditate and live my life by begging. So that's exactly what Prabhupada is telling here. And Prabhupada is also quoting Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra was a king actually, but he was performing the activities of a sage. But it can be done only by a person who has transcended the three modes of material nature, right? We all perform swadharma, right? Whether if you are a man also we perform chanting Hare Krishna, if you're a woman also we perform chanting Hare Krishna, a child who is 5-year-old is also able to chant Hare Krishna, and even an 80-year-old lady or 100-year-old lady, right? If they want, they can chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra because this is a universal principle. Swadharma is universal to all, right? Whereas Sanatana Dharma is universal for all. Whereas Swadharma, right? A Swadharma of a woman may be different from a man. A Swadharma of an aged person may be different, right? A Vanaprastha may be different from a Kshatriya, or a Vanaprastha may be different from a sannyasi, right? A sannyasi has to do, he should be Parivrjakacharya. You should travel from place to place. You should not even stay in a particular place. Whereas the Swadharma of a Grahastha is different, right? The Swadharma of a Grahastha is to give in charity, is to go to office, earn money with integrity, spend it with compassion, give charity to the right people, like that. So Swadharma varies from person to person, from time to time. It depends on time, place, circumstance. Whereas Sanatana Dharma is universal principle. Sanatana Dharma has to be carried out by all, right? A, B, C, D square, everybody has to do. Whether a man or a woman or an aged person or a child or a whatever, right? Unless, of course, like Haridas Thakur is very old. Now, even then, you wanted to chant, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you don't have to chant now, right? That is, when one is beyond the modes of material nature, then one can act according to higher levels of dharma, right? In that situation, one's dharma changes. But as long as we are in this material world, as long as we are practicing sadhana bhakti, we need to perform our swadharma according to the qualities that we've acquired, according to our previous desires and activities. You should not artificially try to give it up, because we will not be able to give it up. At that particular point, when we want something, we will go back to our nature, right? So I was just remembering one Akbar Birbal story, right? One person came to the court because he could speak all languages, right? And then he challenged Akbar that anybody can find out what is my mother tongue, right? And then what happened, like everybody was trying asking questions in different languages, but he used to answer in the language the question was asked, right? And then Birbal said, okay, I will find out your mother tongue, okay, give me a day's time. And then what happens, in the night, he goes to where that person is sleeping, and then he hits him hard on his head, right? And that time he says amma, like that, because when one is not in proper consciousness, when one is sleeping, right, at that time only mother tongue comes out, right? When one is in troubled condition, mother tongue comes out. Similarly, when we are pushed to the corner, extreme hunger, thirst, like that time what does a Kshatriya do? Kshatriya cannot continue with his process of with his begging by arms. He will try to attack the person and from whom he is begging to get the food, because that is the nature of a Kshatriya. That is why one should not artificially try to repress, right? What can repression accomplish, right? Like that Prabhupada translates, right? One should not artificially repress and suppress one's emotions, one's desires, because it will, when bottled up, it comes out with greater vigor. So what is better? To accept one's desires, regulate it, and practice and try to Krishna conscious, try to dovetail it in Krishna consciousness. That is what is the best thing, right? Rather than artificially give up our duties like that. Okay, Nagavani Mataji, go ahead. Text number. Oh no, no, we will stop here. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we'll continue with verse number 36 tomorrow. Let's go on to Nectar of Instruction, verse number 5. Very, very interesting, very wonderful verse of Nectar of Instruction, which actually tells us how we should respect a devotee, right? So even in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when somebody asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during Jagannath Puri Rath Yatra, where devotees used to come from Navadvip and all the other places, that time they used to have association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That time they will ask Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One time they asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is a Vaishnava? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, anyone who utters the name of Krishna even once, he is a Vaishnava. Another time, somebody asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is a Vaishnava? Anyone who constantly remembers Krishna all the time, who enables others to chant Hare Krishna, such a person is a Vaishnava. So, in this way, in different contexts, right, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only answered, anybody who chants Hare Krishna even once is a Vaishnava. Right? So, the bandwidth or the range in which we can call a person a Vaishnava is so huge that one cannot say that, oh, this is a Vaishnava, this is not a Vaishnava. It become a Vaishnava aparad. That is why one has to be very careful whom we classify as a Vaishnava or not a Vaishnava. It is better to err on the side of caution. Better to give respect to everybody, right? And protect our own devotional life rather than try to judge people. Oh, this is a Uttamadhikari, this is a Madhyamadhikari, this is a Kanishta Adhikari, right? So we need to, of course, we need to exercise proper intelligence also, right? We cannot go and fall down at the feet of somebody who's a Mayavadi and then, say that, oh, you are a great, I'm going to, of course, we need to respect everybody because everybody is in the stage of evolution. But at the same time, we act or we perform our action using our intelligence, and for that intelligence we have to pray to the Lord, right? So in this way, in this particular verse, Nectar of Instruction 5, it's going to talk about how we need to respect devotees, right? To which kind of devotee, how much respect we need to give, right? In that way, this is a very fantastic verse, especially for practicing devotees. This gives a lot of insight on how we should respect devotees. Yeah. So in Nectar of Instruction 5, कृष्णेति यस्य गिरितां मनसाद्रियेत दीक्षास्ति चेत् प्रणतिभिश्च भजन्तमीशम् शुश्रूषया भजन विघ्नमनन्यमन्या निन्दादिशून्यहृदमीप्सित सङ्गलब्ध्या. Okay, Nagavani Mataji, you can read the synonyms, word-to-word translation. Are you there? Okay, so okay, let me read synonyms. Very beautiful. Let's pay attention. Very, very important verse. Krishna, the holy name of Lord Krishna. Iti, thus. Yasya, of whom. Giri, in the words or speech. Okay, Shobha Mataji, go ahead. Someone who's not read, I wanted that person to read. Okay, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam,
Srila
yes.
Prabhupada. Synonyms and translation by Srila Prabhupada. First, the holy name of Lord Krishna. Iti, thus. Yasya, of whom. Giri, in the word of the speech. Come in. Manasaha, by the mind. Manasa, by the mind. Adriyeta, one.
Adriyeta, Adar. Like we say in Hindi, no? Adar. Adar matlab you're giving respect to someone. Adriyeta.
Adriyeta, one must honor. Diksha, initiation. Asti, there is. Said, if. Pranati bihi, by obeisances. Cha, also. Bhajantam, engage in devotional service. Isham, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sushrusaya, by practical service. Bhajana Vijnam, one who is advanced in devotional service. Ananyam, without deviation, Ananya Nindha Adi, of bless me of others, etc. Shunya, completely devoid, Ridam, whose heart Ipsita, desirable, Sangha, association, Labdhaya, by gaining. Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. One should mentally honor the devotees who chant the holy name of the Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation, Diksha, and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And one should associate with the with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity of to criticize others. Should I go with Purport Mataji?
No, no, Mataji, we'll just discuss this translation. The three kinds of devotees are mentioned here. The first kind of devotee is a Kanishta Adhikari. Kanishta Adhikari means someone who has faith in the Supreme Lord. He comes to the temple, offers obeisances to the Lord, but he does not know how to interact with other devotees. He does not know that the Lord is also present as super soul in other devotees. Right? One should respect and honor other devotees. Right? That is a Kanishta Adhikari. And then we have a Madhyama Adhikari. Madhyama Adhikari is a person who's taken initiation, who's completely believing in this process of Krishna consciousness, who also engages in the worship of the deity, but who also knows how to associate and serve the other devotees also. That's a Madhyamadhikari, right? We also see the four important qualifications of a Madhyamadhikari is what? One, he worships the Lord. He knows that the Lord is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He worships the Lord. And then what he also does, he avoids the envious people, because when we associate with people who are envious, then we also become envious, right? So it is said that we are the average of the five people that we associate very constantly with, right? So we need to be very careful whom we need to associate with. Now, Madhyamadhikari is especially very careful, right? He avoids the envious. And then he is compassionate to ignorant people, innocent people, people who don't know, right? But they are willing to we are favorable to Krishna consciousness, but they simply don't know. So such people, such Madhyamadhikaris are compassionate. And then they are friendly with other devotees, right? To other practitioners of Krishna consciousness, they do service together, right? In this way, they are friendly. So these four things are the characteristics of a Madhyama Adhikari. And then Uttama Adhikari. Uttama Adhikari is somebody who thinks that everybody else is more qualified than me. Everybody else is a better devotee than me. I am most fallen, right? Such a devotee cannot preach, right? How will such a devotee preach? When he thinks that everybody else is more qualified, what will he go and say? He will already feel that everybody knows better than me. Such a person is so much advanced in undeviated devotional service. Such a person is a Uttama Adhikari. And very important qualification of an Uttama Adhikari is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. Why would you not criticize others? Because whatever the other person does, this person thinks that he must be having a higher motive. Why is he doing that? Apparently, it may be abominable, but this person is not even criticizing him for it. He thinks that, oh, there must be some reason why this person is acting in such a way, right? It's between the Lord and him. Who am I to criticize about it? That is an Uttamadhikari, because he thinks that I am most fallen and maybe I'm not able to understand why this person is doing it. Whereas a Madhyamadhikari will not think like that. A Madhyamadhikari will try to question, ask him why he did that, right? Because Madhyamadhikari, but when he indulges in a conversation, he finds that person to be envious. Then immediately he will cut it. He will cut the conversation there only and leave. But if he finds that person is innocently doing this, then he will try to correct that person with the intention of helping that person to advance. So these are the three kinds of devotees, right? One should offer respect according to the level of each of the devotee, right? So are we going to judge everybody, right? Oh, is this person Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama, right? It is always best to offer obeisances to everybody, right? Unless we are very sure that this person is very, very junior or something like that, we can maybe mentally honor, right? For example, the temple president may not offer obeisances to everybody who offers obeisances to him, because the whole day then he'll be doing only offering obeisances. right? So he may mentally offer obeisance to a person who's just, walking into the temple and he's offering obeisance. Even then, the temple president or somebody who's very advanced also, he also offers obeisance in his mind, right? He may not offer obeisance, dandavat pranam, but a person who sees his spiritual master, it is said that every time one sees one's spiritual master, that is as good as, say for example, I am in, Diksha ceremony is going on, right? My spiritual master is always Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, right? So when Guru Maharaj is giving Diksha, that time when I see Guru Maharaj entering the hall, I offer obeisances. And then I'm getting a phone call, right? So I'm going out of the room to attend a call, and then I'm coming inside the room. Again, I have to offer obeisance to my spiritual master. Every time I see my spiritual master, I'm supposed to offer obeisance to my spiritual master, right? So in that way, the offering of obeisances and respect varies from person to person, right? Maybe if I've just offered obeisance to another fellow devotee and I get a call, I go out. When I come back, I need not offer obeisance again. But to my spiritual master, I have to offer obeisance. When I go out of the vision of that particular person, I come back, then again I have to offer obeisance. So like this, the three different types of devotees are identified: Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, Uttama Adhikari. But offering obeisances to devotees or even to a person, why we offer obeisance? Even a person who is, say, a Mayavadi, even to such a person, we may offer obeisance at a distance. Why? Because the super soul is still present in that particular devotee, in that particular person. We need not go and associate with that person because we are afraid of Vaishnava Aparadh. But it is always good to offer obeisance to every person, knowing well that we are offering obeisance to the super soul in the heart of that particular person, right? So we can always offer, at least mentally, right? We honor every person. We don't ridicule any person unless we are entrusted with the responsibility that you are responsible for this person, right? This person's advancement depends on you. Like that, our Diksha Guru, our Shiksha Gurus are telling us. Then we have the right to correct that person. Okay. Then we have the right to tell that person, oh, this is not right. You should be doing this. But unless we have this responsibility, it is not my business to correct anybody, right? So that is the most important principle here because it will affect our devotional service. All right, so let's move ahead with the purport. What is the time? Okay. All right, so we'll read maybe one or two paragraphs and we'll end at 1:45. Yeah. Go ahead. Nagavani Mataji, are you there? Okay, Karpakavali Mataji, go ahead.
And thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. Ma'am.
Dandavad.
Yeah, perfect. Purport by Prabhupada KJ. In order to intelligently apply the sixfold loving reciprocations mentioned in the previous verse, one must select proper persons with careful discrimination. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore advises that we should meet with the Vaishnavas in an appropriate way according to their particular status. In this verse, he tells us how to deal with three types of devotees: the Kanishta Adhikari, the Madhyama Adhikari, and the Uttama Adhikari. The highlighted something is coming.
Yeah.
The Kanishta Adhikari is a neophyte who has received the Harinama initiation from the spiritual master and is trying to chant the holy name of Krishna. One should respect such a person within his mind as a Kanishta. Kanishta,
Kanishta Vaishnava.
Kanishta Vaishnava. A Madhyama Adhikari has received the spiritual initiation from the spiritual master and has been fully engaged by him in the constant loving service of the Lord. The Madhyama Adhikari should be considered to be situated midway in devotional service. The Uttama Adhikari or highest devotee is one who is very advanced with the devotional service. An Uttama Adhikari is not interested in blaspheming others. His heart is completely clean and has attained the realized state of unalloyed Krishna consciousness. According to Srila Goswami, the association and service of such a Bhagavata or perfect Vaishnava are most desirable. One should not remain a Kanishta Adhikari. One who is situated in the lowest form of devotional service and is interested only in worshipping the deity, the temple. Why such a devotee is described in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. आश्रयम् इव हरये
अर्चायामेव हरये पूजां यः श्रद्धये हते न तद्भक्तेषु अन्येषु स भक्तः प्राकृतः स्मृतः.
A person who is very faithfully engaged in the worship of the deity in the temple, but who does not know how to behave towards devotee or people in general is called Prakrita Bhakta or
Prakrita.
Kanishtadhikari. Prakrita,
Prakrita.
Prakrita Bhakta. Prakrita Bhakta or Kanishtadhikari. One therefore has to raise himself from the position of a Kanishtadhikari to the platform of Madhyama Adhikari. The Madhyama
Okay,
Adhikari
thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
thank you.
We'll give
Thank
Nagavani Mataji one more chance. She's asking. Yes, Mataji, go ahead. Please unmute yourself. Nagavani Mataji. Please unmute yourself. Nagavani Mataji. Okay, Navkishori Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Danvat Pranam. Thank you, Mataji. One therefore has raised himself from the position of Kanishta Adhikari to the platform of Madhyama Adhikari. The Madhyama Adhikari is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.46 in this way. Vishwari tad dineshu यह करोति स मध्यमः. The Madhyama Adhikari The Madhyama Adhikari is a devotee who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the highest object of love, makes friends with the Lord's devotees, is merciful to the ignorant and those who are envious by nature. This is the way to cultivate devotional service properly. Therefore, in this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami has advised us how to treat various devotees. We can see from practical experience that there are different types of Vaishnavas. The Prakrita Sahajyas generally chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, yet they are attached to women, money, and intoxication. Although such persons may chant the holy name of the Lord, they are not yet properly purified. Such people should be respected within one's mind, but their association should be avoided. Those who are innocent but simply carried away by bad associations, bad associations from pure should be bad associations should be shown favor if they are eager to receive proper instructions from pure devotees. But those neophyte devotees who are actually initiated by the bona fide spiritual master and are seriously engaged in the carrying out the orders of the spiritual master should be offered respectful obeisances. In the Krishna consciousness movement, a chance is given to everyone. Hare Krishna. Without discrimination of caste, creed, or color. Everyone is invited to join in this moment. Sit with us, take prasada, and hear about Krishna. When we see that someone is actually interested in Krishna consciousness and want to see, sorry, we see that someone is actually interested in Krishna consciousness and want to be initiated, we accept him as a disciple for the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. When a neophyte devotee is actually initiated and engaged in the devotional service by the orders of the spiritual master, he should be accepted immediately as a bona fide Vaishnavas, and obeisances should be offered unto the unto him. Out of many such Vaishnavas, one may be found to be very seriously engaged in the service of the Lord, strictly following all the regulative principles, chanting the prescribed number of round and japa and always thinking of how to expand the Krishna consciousness movement. Such a Vaishnava should be accepted as an Uttama Adhikari, a highly advanced devotee, and his association should always be sought. The process of the process by which a devotee becomes attached to Krishna is described in Chaitanya Chaitamrita Antya Leela 4.192. Diksha Kale Bhakta Kare Atma Samarpana Sai Kale Krishna Tare Kare Atma Sama. At the time of initiation, when a devotee fully surrenders to the service of the Lord Shri Krishna, accept him to be as good as he himself. Diksha or spiritual master spiritual initiation is explained in the Bhakti Sandarbha 283 by Srila Jiva Goswami. Divyam gnanam yato dadiyat kuriyat papasya shankasya
तस्मद दीक्षेति सा प्रकृता सा प्रोक्ता देशिकैष तत्व कोविदैः. By Diksha, one gradually becomes disinterested in material enjoyment and gradually becomes interested in a spiritual. We have seen many practical examples of this, especially in Europe and America. Many students who came to us from rich and respectable family lose their all interest in material enjoyment and become very eager to enter into spiritual life. Although they come from very wealthy families, many of them accept living conditions that are not very comfortable. Indeed, for Krishna's sake, they are prepared. To accept any living conditions as long as they can live in the temple and associate with the Vaishnavas. When one becomes so disinterested in material enjoyment, he becomes fit for initiation by the spiritual master. For the advancement of spiritual life, Srimad Bhagavatam 6.1.13 prescribes tapas brahmacharina tapas brahmacharina samina cha damina cha. When a person is serious about accepting diksha, he must be prepared to practice austerity, celibacy, and control of the mind and body. If one is so prepared and is desirous of receiving spiritual enlightenment, divyam gnanam, he is fit for being initiated. Gnanam is technically called tada vignana about the supreme. Tada vigna eva be gacheta. When one is interested in the transcendental subject matter of the absolute truth, he should be initiated. Such a person should approach a spiritual master in order to take diksha. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.3.21 also prescribed tasmad Dhyeta Jignashusaya Uttamama. When one is actually interested in the transcendental service of the absolute truth, he should approach a spiritual master. One
Hare
should
Krishna.
not accept a spiritual. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji. Hare
Thank you so
Krishna.
much. Hare Krishna. So here we will end today. So here we already discussed the three types of devotees: Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. If anyone has any questions, we can take that at the end of the session. But quickly, what we understand is Kanishta Adhikari, he only considers the Lord to be everything. Right? He does not understand the importance of association of devotees, how it is favorable to associate with devotees, to serve the devotees, and in this way we can please the Lord more. Madhyama Adhikari, he follows those four criteria that I mentioned. Like, he's friendly with devotees, he worships the Supreme Lord, he's not, he avoids the envious, and he's compassionate towards the innocent. Right? That is a Madhyama Adhikari. And Uttama Adhikari are the various spiritual masters who are coming in the bona fide Guru Parampara. They, in fact, are ready to take the karma of all the people, provided the people are interested and they're ready to chant, they're ready to follow the four regulative principles. Right? We see some of the spiritual masters, it is said that Prabhupada also told that if somebody takes initiation but does not follow the regulative principle, it affects the health of the spiritual master, because the spiritual master has taken the karma and that person is not even doing, either the following the regulative principles or not chanting 16 rounds. So like that, an initiated devotee has to have the responsibility to ensure that at least he follows the four regulative principles and chants minimum 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra every day, like that. Right? So this process of initiation itself is given so much of importance. Right? Diksha Kale Bhakta Kare Atma Samarpan. Because a person, it is like a second birth. When somebody takes initiation, then the first birth is the birth from the womb of a mother, isn't it? And the second birth, especially for boys, they do what is called the Upanayanam ceremony. They do in the, for the Brahmana boys, they do. That is the kind of a second birth for the child. But for a person who is taking initiation, this like you get a new name, right? That is also excitement is there. From Meera, you become Medhavini Sakhi Devi Dasi. Right? The common in all the names is Devi Dasi. That means in my second birth that I'm taking, I have the consciousness of being a servant. Right? I give up the consciousness that I am the master, I am the controller. Everybody has to serve me. Everybody has to give up everything else and they have to run and fulfill the errands for me. Right? That is the consciousness of a Kanishta Adhikari. or even a person who's not even coming to Krishna consciousness. And that is why such a person is frustrated, because nobody, like His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj was mentioning in a class, right? In offering respect, we will never get agitated. Why? Because always we can offer respect, but in expecting respect from others, we will always be agitated. Why? Because other person may not respect us, and we want that person to respect us. In this way, we get frustrated. So, in wanting to offer respect to others, one can be happy all the time. Because who is going to stop me from offering obeisances? 100 times, 1,000 times. As much as I am capable to do, I can always do and derive bliss out of it. But in trying to expect respect from others, I will always be frustrated. So, Diksha Kale Bhakta Kare Atma Samarpan. When somebody wants to surrender to the Lord, there is no limit to how much one can surrender. As much as possible, one can surrender and feel the bliss of it. Sei Kale Krishna Tare Kare Atma Sama. Atma Sama. In such a situation, when a person surrenders, then Krishna considers this person equal to himself, because all of the karma is also taken away at the time of initiation, and that person becomes as good as the Lord himself. But that person also gets a responsibility that now I am initiated. Now I have to perform my duties in a responsible way. So such a person automatically becomes disinterested in material life and wants to practice spiritual life. And of course, the spiritual master now is at a Uttamadhikari level, right, where he actually gives initiation, which means such a person takes the karma, like Vasudev Ghosh also sings, right? If I can take the karma of all of the people in this world, and in this way the entire population can go back to Godhead, I am willing to go even to hell to suffer. Those are all Uttamadhikaris, right? And we have to take shelter of such an Uttamadhikari who's willing to sacrifice so much, even willing to undergo so much of physical discomfort, just because simply he wants to deliver all of the conditioned souls of this world. And what should we do? Tad Vijnartam Sagurum Eva Bigachet. Right? One should be initiated. One should approach such a spiritual master. Tad Vijnanartam. Vijnanartam means, like we saw in the second chapter also. Right? One is Jnana Yoga and the other is Vijnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga means knowledge in the head. I know this is right, this I should not do. Right? But I'm not able to apply that principle in my life. Right? I can give lectures to 1,000 people. Right? But when it comes to practical application, I have zero knowledge. I don't know how to apply. That means I don't have wisdom. I only have knowledge. Right? That's why Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. Brahmane Gavi Hasini Shuni Cheva Svapakecha Pandita Samadarshana. Vidya is knowledge that is there in the head. But what is the actual application of Vidya? Is to become Vinaya. That means to have the humility to see everybody as part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this transcendental science is called Vijnana. And this Vijnana comes only when we are surrendered to the spiritual master. When we serve the spiritual master, we get the knowledge. And in that way, we get this Vijnana or the wisdom to practice Krishna consciousness. All right. So with this, we will conclude our session for today. We'll do a 2-minute kirtan, and then we will see who are all there. We are all on dot, 1:47, 2-3 minutes Indian Standard Time. It works like that for everybody, right? We cannot say that it is late, right? Because we always start our class also 2-3 minutes late only, isn't it? So but quickly we will do Harinam Sankirtan, and devotees can nicely switch on your cameras. Vaishnava Darshan is very important at the end of the session. Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyarishadarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Jaya Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, Sudarshan, Jaya Radha, Krishna Chandra Radha, Krishna Chandra Radhe Radhe, Jaya Bala Gopal, Jaya Bala Gopal, Bala Gopal Jaya, Bala Gopal Jaya, Guru Parampara, Guru Parampara, Guru Parampara Jaya, Guru Parampara Jaya Jaya, Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Gurudev, Gurudev, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. कलियुग पतित पावन हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय, हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय. All glories assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai. Okay, so we have Nagavani Mataji keeps her hand raised. So first name I will have to call out Nagavani Mataji. Right. Thank you so much. And Mataji's camera is not is no, his mobile is not suitable. We understand, Mataji. Thank you so much for joining in every day. Shobha Mataji, thank you. Nilanjani Mataji, thank you. Prashavanu Kanya Mataji, Monimala Mataji, Vijayalakshmi Priya Mataji, Sindhu Mataji, Lata Swami Mataji, Rohini Mataji, Navakishori Mataji. Okay. Sarva Gopeshwari Mataji, Ramya Mataji, thank you. Sudha Mataji, Karpagavalli Mataji, and all the devotees, thank you very much. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyev cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. So if anyone has any questions, then we can take that. Otherwise, we will end today's session on this note of thanking all the wonderful devotees. Thank you very much. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you. We'll meet tomorrow morning, 5 o'clock for Hare Krishna Mahamantra chanting. And then at